She stood at the registration desk of Granite Peak Tactical Academy, holding a course enrollment form for advanced defensive shooting. Her appearance suggested someone who might struggle with a kitchen knife, let alone military-grade firearms. Mid-50s petite frame, wearing a floral print blouse and comfortable walking shoes that belonged in a suburban garden rather than a tactical training facility. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Behind the reception counter, Ashley Murphy looked up from her computer screen with barely concealed impatience. The morning's advanced course was designed for law enforcement officers, military veterans, and private security contractors. Students arrived wearing tactical gear and carrying equipment cases that cost more than most people's monthly salaries. This woman carried a small leather purse. "I'm here for the 9 a.m. advanced course," she said quietly, placing her paperwork on the counter with hands that showed no calluses from weapons, handling, or training activities. Murphy glanced at the enrollment form, then at the woman's civilian appearance, then back at the paperwork with growing confusion. "Ma'am, this course requires documented firearms experience. Military service, law enforcement training, certified security work. Do you have qualifying credentials?" "I have some experience with firearms instruction," the woman replied simply. The lobby of Granite Peak buzzed with its usual pre-course energy. 15 students checked equipment, discussed previous training experiences, and engaged in the competitive banter that characterized professional tactical education environments. Their gear, bags contained custom holsters, precision optics, and ammunition that cost more per round than most people spent on lunch. Brandon Walsh, a former SEAL turned private contractor, noticed the conversation at the registration desk. "Ashley, what's the holdup? We're burning daylight." "Sir, we have a registration issue," Murphy replied, gesturing toward the woman whose appearance created an obvious contrast with the facility's typical clientele. Walsh approached the counter with the confident stride of someone accustomed to taking charge of situations. His tactical clothing, multiple certifications displayed on his gear, and general demeanor communicated professional competence that new students found either intimidating or reassuring. "Ma'am, what kind of firearms experience are we talking about?" Walsh asked, his tone suggesting he was prepared to redirect her toward more appropriate training options. The woman looked around the lobby where students were discussing night vision operations, urban combat techniques, and equipment modifications that cost more than her entire outfit. "I've done some teaching," she said quietly. "Teaching what, exactly?" Walsh pressed. "Hunter safety courses? Basic pistol classes at the local gun shop?" Several students had begun paying attention to the conversation. Maria Gonzalez, a federal agent with 12 years of field experience, paused her equipment check to observe the exchange. Detective Frank Patterson, recently graduated from an elite tactical school, moved closer with the interest of someone witnessing a potential training disaster. "Just some instruction in various shooting disciplines," the woman replied, maintaining her calm demeanor despite the growing audience of skeptical professionals. Walsh studied her appearance with the analytical attention he'd developed through years of evaluating personnel capabilities. Nothing about her suggested familiarity with advanced tactical training. No weapon-related accessories, no signs of regular range activity, no behavioral indicators that suggested comfort with high-stress shooting environments. "Ma'am, this course involves live fire exercises under stress conditions. Students engage multiple targets while moving, shooting from unconventional positions, making split-second decisions that could mean life or death in real situations." The woman nodded. "I understand the curriculum. Do you own any firearms?" Patterson asked, joining the conversation with professional curiosity about someone so obviously out of place in their training environment. "I have access to various Weapon systems, she replied, her phrasing suggesting familiarity with technical terminology that seemed inconsistent with her civilian appearance. Murphy pulled up the course requirements on her computer screen. Ma'am, the advanced program requires students to demonstrate proficiency with handguns, rifles, and tactical shotguns. Students need to score in the 95th percentile on preliminary assessments just to qualify for enrollment. I'm prepared for the assessments, the woman said simply. The lobby had grown quieter as more students became aware of the unusual situation developing at the registration desk. Tony Richards, a police instructor from Chicago, exchanged glances with Jennifer Lee, a military contractor specializing in close protection operations. Look, lady, Richards said, approaching the counter with 15 years of law enforcement authority in his voice. This isn't a hobby shooting class. We're talking about advanced tactical training that pushes experienced professionals to their limits. The woman's expression remained unchanged, but something in her posture suggested she was accustomed to being underestimated by people who made assumptions based on appearances. I've participated in advanced tactical training before, she said quietly. Where? Walsh demanded. What facility? What instructors? What certifications? Her hesitation before answering created an awkward silence that suggested either reluctance to discuss her background or complete lack of qualifying experience. Various facilities, she replied vaguely. Private training programs. Gonzalez stepped forward with the diplomatic approach that characterized her federal training. Ma'am, we're not trying to be difficult, but this course has safety requirements that protect all students. If something goes wrong during live fire exercises, people get hurt. The woman looked around the circle of faces that had gathered to observe the conversation. Each expression reflected professional concern mixed with barely concealed skepticism about her ability to participate safely in training designed for tactical professionals. I appreciate your concerns, she said calmly. Perhaps I could demonstrate basic proficiency before the course begins. Walsh considered the suggestion. Preliminary assessments were standard procedure, but they usually involved confirming skills that students had already documented through official credentials. This situation was unprecedented in his experience. Ma'am, the preliminary assessment isn't just basic marksmanship. We test weapon handling under stress, target engagement sequences, tactical movement while shooting. It's designed to challenge experienced operators. I understand, she replied. When would you like me to demonstrate? Murphy looked at her computer schedule, then at Walsh, then at the growing crowd of students who were obviously intrigued by the unusual situation. Sir, we have 30 minutes before the course officially begins. Range 7 is available for testing. Walsh realized that allowing the assessment would either quickly resolve the situation by revealing the woman's obvious limitations, or create an educational opportunity for his regular students to observe the importance of proper preparation and realistic self-assessment. All right, he decided. We'll conduct an abbreviated preliminary assessment. But understand, if you can't demonstrate safe weapon handling and basic tactical proficiency, you'll need to enroll in our foundational courses before attempting advanced training. The woman nodded her acceptance of the terms. That seems fair. As the group moved toward Range 7, students discussed the unusual situation in hushed tones. Most anticipated a brief demonstration that would highlight the importance of proper credentials and realistic expectations about tactical training requirements. Patterson walked beside Richards, both men sharing the professional skepticism that characterized their approach to unknown quantities in high-risk training environments. This should be interesting, Patterson observed. Either she's going to surprise us, or we're about to witness someone learning a very expensive lesson about overestimating their capabilities. My money's on the expensive lesson, Richards replied. Seen it before. Civilians think they understand tactical shooting because they watch action movies. The woman walked quietly among the group of tactical professionals, seemingly unaffected by their obvious doubts about her qualifications. Her calm demeanor suggested either dangerous overconfidence or knowledge that others couldn't yet recognize. Range 7 was equipped for comprehensive weapons assessment, with target systems at multiple distances and shooting positions that tested various aspects of tactical proficiency. Walsh began setting up the evaluation course while other students gathered in the observation area. "Ma'am," Walsh called out, "what weapon would you prefer for the assessment? We have standard service pistols, tactical rifles, whatever you're most comfortable with." The woman approached the weapons rack and examined the available options with attention to detail that surprised several observers. She handled different firearms with casual familiarity, checking actions and testing ergonomics in ways that suggested more experience than her appearance indicated. "This will work," she said, selecting a standard Glock 19 that most students considered unremarkable. Asterisk. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Walsh had designed the assessment course to challenge experienced shooters while maintaining safety protocols that protected both participants and observers. Success required not just accuracy, but speed, tactical awareness, and stress management, under conditions that replicated real-world defensive situations. The course involves 5 stages, Walsh explained to the assembled group. Static precision shooting, timed target engagement, shooting while moving, multiple target sequences, and stress fire under simulated combat conditions. He turned to the woman who was examining the Glock with methodical attention to its condition and characteristics. "Ma'am, most experienced shooters find this assessment challenging. Are you sure you want to proceed?" Her slight smile suggested confidence that seemed inconsistent with every other aspect of her presentation. "I'm ready." "When you are." As she moved to the starting position, the observation area fell quiet with the focused attention that tactical professionals reserve for watching others demonstrate skills under pressure. Most expected a brief educational failure that would reinforce the importance of proper preparation and realistic self-assessment. None were prepared for what was about to unfold on Range 7. The transformation began the moment she stepped to the firing line. Her posture shifted from the casual stance of a suburban visitor to the controlled readiness of someone who understood weapons as tools rather than objects of intimidation. She checked the Glock's chamber with smooth efficiency, tested the trigger reset, and adjusted her grip with micro-movements that suggested thousands of hours of practice. "Range is hot," Walsh announced, activating the electronic target system. Stage 1. Precision shooting. 5 shots, 50 yards, 2-minute time limit. The first stage was designed to establish baseline accuracy under controlled conditions. Most of students used the full-time allowance to carefully align their shots, managing breath control and trigger squeeze to achieve acceptable groupings on distant targets. She raised the pistol and fired 5 rounds in rapid succession. The shots came so quickly that observers couldn't distinguish individual reports. They merged into a sustained crack that echoed across the range like automatic fire. "Cease fire," Walsh called out, his voice carrying surprise as he activated the target retrieval system. When the target returned, absolute silence fell over Range 7. 5 holes clustered in the center. Ring formed a group small enough to cover with a quarter. The precision was extraordinary, but the speed defied explanation. 17 seconds, Patterson read from his stopwatch, disbelief coloring his voice. She completed Stage 1 in 17 seconds. Gonzalez moved closer to examine the target. That grouping is competition-level precision. At that speed, it should be impossible. Walsh studied the woman who was already preparing for Stage 2 with calm efficiency. Her breathing remained controlled, her stance solid, showing no signs of stress or exertion, despite performing at a level that challenged experienced professionals. Stage 2. Timed engagement. Multiple targets, varied distances, 30-second. Time limit. The electronic system activated 6 targets at different ranges and elevations, creating a complex engagement sequence that required rapid target acquisition and precise shot placement under time pressure. She moved through the sequence with fluid precision that seemed choreographed. Each target fell with single, perfectly placed shots, while she transitioned between firing positions with economy of movement that wasted no time or energy. The final target dropped with 3 seconds remaining on the timer. 6 targets, 6 hits. Center mass, Walsh announced, his voice flat with professional shock. 27 seconds total time. Richards pulled out his phone and began recording, realizing he was witnessing something that his law enforcement colleagues would never believe without documentation. Stage 3. Shooting while moving. Engage targets while advancing through the course. Time limit, 45 seconds. This phase required maintaining accuracy while navigating obstacles and changing firing positions, a skill that separated tactical professionals from recreational shooters. Most students struggled to balance movement speed with shot precision. She began moving through the course with surprising agility for someone who had appeared physically unremarkable. Her footwork was precise, her transitions between shooting positions smooth, her target engagement flawless despite the complexity of shooting while in motion. Each target received single, decisive shots that found center mass while she maintained forward momentum through a course designed to challenge the most experienced tactical operators. All targets down, 38 seconds, Walsh reported, his professional composure beginning to crack as he realized the implications of what he was observing. Lee stepped closer to the observation window. That's not civilian shooting. That's instructor-level performance. Stage 4 introduced multiple target sequences that required split-second decision-making under pressure. Targets appeared and disappeared at random intervals, forcing shooters to prioritize threats and manage ammunition while maintaining accuracy standards. She engaged each target sequence with perfect timing, her shots finding their marks despite the complexity of rapidly changing tactical scenarios. Her magazine changes were smooth and fast, her target transitions economical, her accuracy maintained despite increasing pressure. Perfect score, Walsh announced, his voice carrying the weight of someone whose understanding of firearms proficiency had just been fundamentally challenged. The final stage simulated combat stress through noise, strobing lights, and time pressure that pushed shooters beyond their comfort zones. Most experienced students found this phase challenging, enough to affect their performance significantly. She moved through the stress course as if the conditions were routine. The disorienting lights and sounds that rattled other students seemed to have no effect on her concentration or accuracy. Her shots remained precise, her movement controlled, her performance consistent despite conditions designed to degrade shooting skills. When the final buzzer sounded, Range 7 fell into complete silence except for the electronic target systems. Cycling back to standby mode. Walsh approached the scoring computer with the expression of someone confirming information he couldn't quite believe. The digital display showed results that exceeded the facility's historical records across every category measured. Perfect score, he announced to the assembled group. Every stage, every target, every measurement. 100% accuracy. Record-breaking times, flawless technique under maximum stress conditions. The observation area erupted in quiet conversations as tactical professionals tried to process what they'd witnessed. The woman who had appeared incapable of handling advanced firearms training had just demonstrated shooting skills that exceeded those of instructors who taught similar courses. She cleared the Glock, checked the chamber, and returned the weapon to Walsh with the same casual efficiency she'd shown throughout the assessment. Her demeanor remained calm and unaffected, as if record-breaking performance was simply routine. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Does this qualify me for the advanced course?" Walsh stood holding the pistol like it had become foreign in his hands, staring at the woman whose appearance bore no relationship to the capabilities she just demonstrated. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "that wasn't just qualification. That was the highest score in our facility's 10-year history." Patterson approached with his phone still recording. "Lady, where did you learn to shoot like that? That's not self-taught. Marksmanship." The woman adjusted her purse strap with the same unassuming gesture she'd used throughout the morning. "I mentioned I had some experience with firearms instruction." "Some experience?" Gonzalez stepped forward with federal agent authority in her voice. "That's professional level performance. Military instructor level. What's your actual background?" For the first time since arriving at Granite Peak, the woman's composed demeanor showed a hint of something that might have been amusement. "I've taught shooting courses before." "What kind of courses?" Richards demanded. "Where? For whom?" Her slight smile suggested she was accustomed to this level of interrogation, but was under no obligation to provide detailed answers. "Various organizations. Different skill levels." Walsh realized he was dealing with someone whose capabilities transcended the assumptions he'd made based on her civilian appearance. The assessment results forced him to reconsider everything he thought he understood about identifying qualified firearms instructors. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "those scores suggest training and experience that goes well beyond civilian instruction. Military special operations, federal law enforcement, professional tactical training. That's the level of performance we just witnessed." The woman looked around the observation area where 15 experienced professionals were staring at her, with expressions ranging from amazement to professional respect, mixed with lingering confusion about her true identity. "I'm just here for the advanced course," she said simply. "When does it begin?" Walsh checked his watch, then looked at the scoring computer, then back at the woman, whose appearance continued to contradict every assumption about tactical shooting expertise. "Ma'am, given these results, I'm not sure our advanced course offers anything you don't already know." Her expression suggested genuine interest in the curriculum, despite her obvious qualifications. "I'd still like to participate. There's always something new to learn." The observation area buzzed with quiet discussions as students tried to understand how someone had developed such extraordinary shooting skills while maintaining a completely civilian appearance and demeanor. Murphy's voice crackled over the range. "Communication system. Mr. Walsh, the advanced course students are assembled and ready to begin." Walsh looked at the woman who had just redefined his understanding of firearms proficiency assessment. "Ma'am, I think we need to discuss your role in today's training session." "My role?" "Someone with your demonstrated capabilities might be more valuable as a co-instructor than as a student." The woman's slight smile returned, suggesting this conversation was heading in a direction she had perhaps anticipated from the beginning. The advanced course began with 15 students and what everyone assumed was one mysterious addition to their ranks. But as the morning progressed, it became clear that traditional student-instructor dynamics were shifting in ways that challenged normal training protocols. During the first tactical drill, Walsh demonstrated proper movement techniques for engaging multiple targets while advancing through urban terrain. His instruction was thorough and professional, reflecting years of special operations experience translated into civilian training curricula. The woman observed quietly from the back of the group, but her attention focused on details that other students missed. When Walsh finished his demonstration, she approached with a polite suggestion. "The approach angle to the third position leaves you exposed to crossfire from the elevated window," she said quietly. "A slight modification to the movement pattern would provide better cover while maintaining tactical advantage." Walsh paused, considering her observation. The elevated window she referenced was a subtle element of the training course that even experienced students often overlooked. Her analysis demonstrated tactical awareness that went beyond basic firearms proficiency. "Show me what you mean," he said, stepping aside to give her access to the demonstration area. What followed redefined everyone's understanding of tactical movement. She demonstrated an alternative approach that utilized available cover more effectively while maintaining optimal firing positions throughout the sequence. Her movement was fluid and purposeful, each step calculated to provide maximum protection while advancing the tactical objective. "That's a significant improvement," Walsh acknowledged, his professional respect evident despite his continued confusion about her background. "Where did you develop that tactical awareness?" "Various training environments," she replied, maintaining the same vague responses that had characterized her earlier answers about her qualifications. Gonzalez stepped forward with federal agent authority. "Ma'am, tactical movement at that level requires extensive training. Military special operations, federal tactical teams, specialized law enforcement units, that's where those skills are developed." The woman's calm demeanor suggested she was accustomed to deflecting questions about her background without providing specific answers. "I've participated in various training programs over the years." During the next drill, Patterson demonstrated close-quarters combat shooting techniques that required split-second decision-making between engaging threats and protecting non-combatants. The exercise was complex enough that most students struggled to balance speed with accurate threat discrimination. Again, the woman's performance exceeded instructor-level standards. Her target discrimination was flawless, her engagement sequence optimal, her safety protocols perfect despite the pressure and complexity of the scenario. "Ma'am," Patterson said after observing her third consecutive perfect performance, "I need to ask directly, what's your professional background? Those skills don't develop through civilian training." Her slight smile returned as she checked her weapon's condition with automatic efficiency. "I've done some professional instruction work." "What kind of instruction?" Richards pressed, joining the conversation with law enforcement persistence. "For whom? What agencies?" "Different organizations," she replied. "Various skill levels and training requirements." Walsh realized that normal questioning wasn't going to reveal the information they needed to understand her background. He decided on a more direct approach that might provide clarity about her actual qualifications. "Ma'am, would you mind if I made some calls to verify your credentials?" Professional courtesy between instructors. She considered the request for several seconds before responding. "What kind of verification are you thinking about?" "Standard professional references, training organizations, certification agencies, instructor databases. The usual background verification that we conduct for anyone interested in teaching roles." Her hesitation suggested either concern about official verification or reluctance to have her background exposed through normal professional channels. "Prefer to keep my involvement in training activities private," she said finally. Lee approached the conversation with private security industry experience. "Ma'am, if you're interested in maintaining privacy, we understand professional discretion requirements. But instructor-level performance requires instructor-level credentials." Walsh made a decision that would change how everyone understood the morning's events. "Why don't we take a break while I make a few phone calls?" Professional courtesy verification through unofficial channels. In his office, Walsh contacted instructors at other tactical training facilities, describing the woman's appearance and performance without requesting official database searches. The conversations that followed would explain everything while raising new questions about her presence at Granite Peak. His first call reached Kevin Thompson at Thunder Ridge Tactical Academy in Colorado. "Kevin, I'm looking for information about someone who might have taught courses in your area. Mid-50s, civilian appearance, but instructor-level shooting capabilities." "What kind of capabilities?" Thompson asked. "Perfect scores on advanced tactical assessments, movement techniques that exceed special operations standards, situational awareness that suggests extensive field experience." A long pause followed. "Marcus, describe her more specifically." Walsh provided additional details about her appearance, demeanor, and the particular technique she demonstrated. "Jesus," Thompson said quietly. "If it's who I think it is, you've got someone who officially doesn't teach anymore, but unofficially maintains instructor credentials that exceed anything in current civilian training." "What do you mean?" "There are rumors in our community about individuals who appear occasionally at training facilities. Always the same pattern: exceptional performance, instructor-level expertise, immediate departure. Never long enough for proper documentation." Thompson explained that over the past few years, multiple facilities had reported similar encounters. Unknown individuals demonstrating extraordinary capabilities, teaching advanced techniques, then disappearing before their backgrounds could be thoroughly verified. The running theory is that they're retired military instructors or federal trainers who maintain their skills through civilian facility visits. Kind of an informal continuing education program. Walsh's second call reached Linda Morrison at Apex Training Systems in Nevada. "Linda, I need background information about someone with instructor-level tactical shooting capabilities. Civilian appearance, but performance that exceeds our normal standards. Marcus, we've had similar visits. Someone matching that description appeared at our facility 8 months ago. Demonstrated techniques we'd never seen before, helped our instructors improve their curricula, then left without providing contact information." Morrison explained that her mystery instructor had revolutionized their approach to tactical shooting education by introducing methods that weren't available through normal certification programs. Whoever these people are, they're operating at levels that go beyond civilian instructor credentials. Military Special Operations training, federal tactical instructor certification, maybe even classified program backgrounds. When Walsh returned to Range 7, he found the woman working individually with students who were struggling with complex tactical scenarios. Her teaching methods were unlike anything he'd observed in 15 years of professional training. Instead of formal instruction and repetitive drills, she provided personalized guidance that identified and corrected specific performance limitations. Students were achieving breakthrough improvements in techniques that had challenged them for months. "She's transforming their capabilities," Gonzalez observed. "In 30 minutes, she's accomplished more than most instructors achieve in full-day sessions." Walsh approached the woman who was helping Richards improve his target transition speed through micro-adjustments to his stance and grip technique. "Ma'am, I've made some calls to colleagues at other training facilities." She looked up from her instruction work with calm attention. "And, there have been similar visits at other facilities. Individuals with exceptional capabilities who appear, demonstrate advanced techniques, then disappear. Always the same pattern." Her expression didn't change, but something in her posture suggested she wasn't surprised by his revelation. "The general consensus is that these individuals are retired military instructors or federal trainers who maintain their skills through civilian facility visits." "That's an interesting theory," she said quietly. Walsh realized he was dealing with someone whose approach to firearms education transcended normal instructor categories. Her presence at Granite Peak wasn't coincidental. It was part of a pattern that suggested ongoing involvement in training activities at levels most civilian facilities never encountered. "Ma'am, would you consider staying for the remainder of today's course? Your expertise could benefit all our students." She looked around Range 7, where students were practicing techniques she just taught them, achieving performance improvements that exceeded their expectations and instructor estimates. "I think I can arrange that," she said simply. Walsh understood that he was witnessing something that existed between official training systems and operational necessity. The woman wasn't just visiting their facility, she was maintaining capabilities that transcended normal civilian instructor boundaries. Walsh's third phone call changed everything. He contacted Robert Kane, Director of Training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers, a man whose network included every significant firearms instructor in the country. Bob, I need discrete information about someone whose capabilities exceed normal civilian instructor credentials. Exceptional tactical shooting, advanced teaching methods, appears to be part of a pattern of visits at multiple facilities. Kane's response came after a long pause. Marcus, describe the teaching techniques you observed. Walsh detailed the personalized instruction methods, the micro-adjustments that produced immediate performance improvements, and the tactical awareness that exceeded special operations standards. Marcus, you need to understand that what you're describing represents training methodologies that aren't available through normal certification programs. Those techniques were developed for instructor programs that officially no longer exist. What kind of programs? 15 years ago, the federal government created the Advanced Tactical Instructor Initiative. ATI was designed to develop teaching capabilities for special operations, federal tactical teams, and classified protection details. Kane explained that ATI had recruited instructors from elite military units, federal agencies, and specialized law enforcement organizations. Selection criteria included not just exceptional shooting skills, but the ability to rapidly improve other operators' capabilities under high-stress conditions. The program's teaching methods were revolutionary. Instead of standardized curricula, ATI instructors learned to identify individual performance limitations and provide targeted corrections that produced breakthrough improvements in minimal time. Walsh realized he was learning about training systems that operated beyond civilian facility understanding. How many people completed the program? Officially, ATI was terminated 12 years ago after budget restructuring eliminated specialized training initiatives. But unofficially, 37 instructors completed the full certification process. Kane continued with information that made Walsh reconsider everything he thought he understood about professional firearms instruction. ATI instructors had been deployed to training facilities worldwide, teaching advanced techniques to personnel whose survival depended on capabilities that exceeded normal tactical training. After program termination, most ATI instructors were reassigned to conventional training roles, but their advanced teaching credentials remained valid, and many continued using their enhanced methods in various capacities. Are any of them still active? That's classified information, Marcus. But I will say that ATI instructors earned lifetime teaching credentials that supersede normal certification requirements. They're authorized to conduct advanced training at any facility, civilian or military. Meanwhile, the woman continued working with Granite Peak students, demonstrating teaching methods that validated everything Kane had described. Her approach to instruction transcended normal training boundaries, identifying and correcting performance limitations that other instructors couldn't even recognize. She helped Gonzalez improve her target transition speed by adjusting her grip angle by 2 degrees, micro-correction that reduced her engagement time by 40%. She showed Patterson a breathing technique that stabilized his long-range accuracy under stress conditions that had challenged him for years. She's not just teaching shooting, Lee observed. She's teaching how to teach shooting. Her methods are transforming how we understand tactical instruction. Walsh's fourth call reached Colonel Sarah Mitchell, retired Army Special Forces, who now consulted for private security training programs. Sarah, I need background verification on someone whose instructor capabilities suggest advanced federal training, ATI-level teaching methods, tactical awareness that exceeds normal special operations standards. Mitchell's response came with military directness. Marcus, if you're dealing with an ATI instructor, you're talking to someone whose credentials exceed anything in civilian training. Those people were selected from the top 1% of tactical professionals and given teaching capabilities that most instructors can't comprehend. Are you familiar with the program? I was an ATI instructor for 6 years before program termination. The training we received was unlike anything in conventional education. We learned to identify performance limitations at levels that weren't visible to other instructors, and provide corrections that produced immediate improvements. Mitchell explained that TII instructors had been trained to operate independently at any facility, civilian or military, with authority to modify curricula based on student needs and operational requirements. Our teaching credentials were designed to function without normal bureaucratic oversight. We could walk into any training facility and provide instruction that exceeded their standard programs. What happened to TII instructors after program? Termination? Some returned to conventional military roles. Others transitioned to federal agency training positions. But many chose to maintain their teaching capabilities through civilian facility visits. Walsh felt understanding dawn as Mitchell described a pattern that matched exactly what he'd observed at Granite Peak. These instructors visit civilian facilities periodically to maintain their skills and ensure that advanced techniques remain available in the training community. They don't seek official recognition or documentation. They just want to keep teaching. When Walsh returned to Range 7, he found the woman conducting an impromptu advanced course that exceeded anything in Granite Peak's standard curriculum. Students were achieving performance levels that challenged facility records, using techniques they'd never encountered in conventional training. "Ma'am," Walsh said quietly, approaching her during a break in instruction, "I've been making calls about advanced instructor credentials." She looked up from helping Richards troubleshoot a complex tactical scenario. "Have you learned anything useful?" "I spoke with people familiar with the Advanced Tactical Instructor Initiative." For the first time since arriving at Granite Peak, her composed demeanor showed genuine surprise. Her careful control suggested someone whose background had just been accurately identified through channels she hadn't expected civilian facilities to access. "I was classified training," she said quietly. "Some information is available through professional networks, especially when someone demonstrates teaching methods that were developed specifically for that program." Asterisk, she considered his words carefully before responding. "What did your contacts tell you?" "That TII instructors earned lifetime teaching credentials that supersede normal certification requirements, that they're authorized to conduct advanced training at any facility, that some maintain their capabilities through civilian facility visits." Her slight smile returned, acknowledging his accurate assessment of her background. "Those are reasonable conclusions." Walsh realized he was dealing with someone whose instructor credentials existed at levels that civilian training facilities rarely encountered. Her presence at Granite Peak represented access to teaching capabilities that transcended normal certification boundaries. "Ma'am, if you're a TII certified instructor, your credentials exceed anything in our standard verification system." "The program officially ended 12 years ago," she replied diplomatically, "but the teaching credentials remain valid." She looked around Range 7 where students were practicing techniques she'd taught them, achieving performance improvements that exceeded their previous limitations and instructor expectations. "Some knowledge is too valuable to let disappear through bureaucratic restructuring," she said finally. Walsh understood that he was witnessing something that existed between official training systems and operational necessity. The woman hadn't been seeking validation of her credentials. She'd been maintaining teaching capabilities that transcended normal civilian instructor boundaries. "Would you consider providing additional instruction for our advanced students? Your teaching methods could benefit our entire program." She considered his request while observing students who were demonstrating techniques that hadn't existed in Granite Peak's curriculum until that morning. "I think we can arrange something," she said simply, her tone suggesting this conversation had developed in directions she'd perhaps anticipated but hadn't expected to occur so directly. With her TII credentials confirmed, the woman's demeanor shifted from careful deflection to professional openness. During the afternoon break, Walsh approached her with respect that acknowledged her superior qualifications and expertise. "Ma'am, I have to ask, what brings someone with your credentials to our facility?" ADI instructors could teach at any training center in the country. She looked across the range where students were practicing techniques she'd introduced. Their performance levels elevated beyond what they'd thought possible that morning. "I'm conducting research," she said simply. "What kind of research?" "Curriculum assessment. Identifying gaps between current civilian training standards and operational requirements that students might actually encounter." Walsh realized her visit had been far more purposeful than he'd initially understood. "Are you evaluating our program?" "I'm evaluating all programs. There's growing concern that civilian tactical training hasn't kept pace with evolving threat environments." She explained that her current mission involved visiting facilities across the country, observing training methods, and identifying deficiencies that could leave students unprepared for real-world applications of their tactical education. Most civilian facilities focus on competitive shooting or basic self-defense, but graduates often find themselves in situations that require capabilities your standard curricula don't address. Walsh considered her assessment of Granite Peak's training program. "What deficiencies have you identified?" "Your students demonstrate excellent marksmanship fundamentals, but their tactical decision-making under stress needs improvement. The movement techniques you teach are adequate for controlled environments, but insufficient for dynamic threat scenarios." Her analysis was detailed and specific, reflecting systematic evaluation that went beyond casual observation. She had assessed not just individual performance, but structural limitations in training approaches that restricted student development. The gap between civilian training and operational necessity has been widening for years. Students graduate from advanced programs believing they're prepared for high-stress situations, but they lack exposure to variables that determine survival in real encounters. Gonzalez joined the conversation, her federal agent background providing context for the woman's concerns. "Are you saying civilian training is inadequate for the threats people actually face?" "I'm saying that current training methods, while excellent for their intended purposes, don't address the full spectrum of scenarios that students might encounter outside controlled range environments." The woman described her observations from facilities nationwide, training programs that produced exceptional range performance but failed to develop adaptability under unpredictable conditions. Students who could achieve perfect scores on standardized assessments but struggled when variables were introduced that challenged their established techniques. I was created to address exactly these limitations. We developed teaching methods that prepared students for scenarios that couldn't be standardized or predicted. Patterson approached law enforcement with curiosity about operational applications. What specific scenarios are civilian students unprepared for? Low light conditions, equipment failures, environmental factors that affect weapon performance, multi-target situations with civilian considerations, sustained operations under physical and psychological stress. She had evaluated thousands of students across dozens of facilities, identifying consistent patterns and training limitations that left graduates unprepared for variables they were likely to encounter in real defensive situations. Most programs teach students to perform under optimal conditions, but optimal conditions rarely exist when tactical skills are actually needed. Richards nodded his understanding as a police instructor. "We try to introduce stress factors, but there are limits to what we can simulate in civilian training environments. That's exactly the problem I'm documenting. Legal, safety, and insurance considerations restrict civilian facilities from providing training that adequately prepares students for real-world variables." The woman's research had revealed systematic limitations in civilian tactical education that affected student preparedness across multiple threat categories. Her mission involved not just identifying these gaps, but developing solutions that facilities could implement within existing operational constraints. "What solutions are you recommending?" Walsh asked. She reached into her purse and withdrew a tablet containing documentation that represented months of research across training facilities nationwide. The data showed patterns in student performance limitations that correlated with specific deficiencies in current curricula. Enhanced stress inoculation training that introduces variables students haven't practiced. Equipment familiarization with weapons they haven't used. Environmental adaptation exercises that challenge their established techniques. Her recommendations were detailed and practical, reflecting a deep understanding of both educational limitations and facility operational requirements. Each suggestion addressed specific performance gaps while remaining implementable within civilian training constraints. I developed training methods that prepared students for scenarios they'd never practiced by teaching adaptability rather than memorization. Those methods can be adapted for civilian facility use. Lee examined the research data with a private security industry perspective. This represents a comprehensive analysis of tactical training effectiveness across the entire industry. The research is ongoing. I visit facilities periodically to observe current methods, evaluate student performance, and document changes in training effectiveness over time. Walsh realized the woman's presence at Granite Peak was part of a larger mission that transcended individual facility assessment. She was conducting systematic research that could influence tactical training standards across the entire civilian industry. Who commissioned this research? Her slight hesitation before responding suggested the answer involved considerations beyond simple academic or commercial interests. Various organizations concerned about the effectiveness of current training standards. Government organizations? Organizations with interest in ensuring that civilian tactical training produces graduates who are adequately prepared for real-world applications of their education. Walsh understood that her research mission involved stakeholders whose interest in civilian training effectiveness extended beyond academic curiosity. The implications suggested connections between civilian tactical education and broader security considerations. Are current training standards considered inadequate for national security purposes? Current training standards are considered inadequate for student security purposes. People invest significant time and money in tactical education, expecting to develop capabilities that will protect them in emergency situations. She explained that her research had documented cases where graduates of advanced civilian programs had been inadequately prepared for scenarios they encountered in real defensive situations. The gap between training and operational reality had resulted in preventable failures that undermined the entire purpose of tactical education. Students deserve training that prepares them for the full range of scenarios they might encounter, not just controlled demonstrations of perfect technique under optimal conditions. Her mission extended beyond research to active intervention. The teaching she'd provided at Granite Peak represented her method of field testing solutions, while simultaneously improving student capabilities at facilities she evaluated. Every facility I visit receives practical recommendations for improving their training effectiveness. Some changes can be implemented immediately, others require longer-term curriculum development. Walsh realized that the morning's events had been both evaluation and intervention. The woman had assessed Granite Peak's programs while simultaneously demonstrating solutions that addressed the limitations she'd identified. What's your assessment of our facility? She looked around Range 7 where students were achieving performance levels that exceeded their previous limitations through techniques she'd introduced during her evaluation visit. Granite Peak has excellent fundamental programs and dedicated instructors. With some curriculum enhancements, you could provide training that better prepares students for real-world variable conditions. What enhancements would you recommend? Her smile suggested this conversation had developed exactly as she'd hoped when she first approached the registration desk that morning. I think we should discuss that over the next few days while I complete my facility assessment. 3 days later. Granite Peak Tactical Academy had transformed into something unprecedented in civilian training. The woman, who had finally introduced herself as Dr. Catherine Hayes, ATII Master Instructor, had systematically revolutionized their approach to tactical education. Her comprehensive facility assessment had identified 17 specific areas where Granite Peak's curricula could better prepare students for real-world applications. More importantly, she had provided detailed implementation strategies that addressed each limitation while remaining within civilian training constraints. Environmental adaptation protocols. Walsh read from her written recommendations, reviewing changes that had already begun improving student performance. Equipment failure response training. Low-light tactical decision-making. Multivariable stress inoculation. Each recommendation included specific training exercises, assessment criteria, and progression standards that elevated Granite Peak's programs beyond standard civilian tactical education. Dr. Hayes had essentially provided a complete curriculum upgrade based on methodologies developed for the most elite federal training programs. The students who had witnessed her initial assessment continued practicing techniques she'd introduced, achieving performance levels that challenged facility records. But more significantly, they demonstrated adaptability under variable conditions that had previously degraded their effectiveness. "She didn't just teach us to shoot better," Patterson observed during the final day's training session. "She taught us to think differently about tactical problem solving." Dr. Hayes had spent her 3-day assessment working individually with every student and instructor, identifying specific performance limitations and providing personalized corrections that produced breakthrough improvements. Her teaching methods validated everything Walsh had learned about ATII capabilities. "Traditional training develops muscle memory through repetition," she explained to Walsh during their final consultation. ATII methods develop cognitive flexibility through adaptation. Students learn to solve tactical problems they've never encountered using principles that apply across variable conditions. Her assessment report contained observations and recommendations that would influence Granite Peak's training programs for years. Each section addressed specific aspects of tactical education with analysis that reflected systematic research across dozens of similar facilities. "Your marksmanship fundamentals are excellent," she wrote in her executive summary. "Your tactical awareness training needs enhancement. Students can hit targets accurately, but struggle with threat assessment under stress. They can execute techniques perfectly, but adapt poorly when variables change." The report included detailed comparisons between Granite Peak's programs and industry standards, identifying areas where the facility exceeded normal benchmarks and others where improvements could elevate their training effectiveness significantly. Most concerning is the gap between student confidence and actual preparedness. Graduates believe their training has prepared them for high-stress situations, but their performance degrades rapidly when optimal conditions don't exist. Dr. Hayes had documented this pattern at facilities nationwide, training programs that produced excellent range performance but failed to develop the adaptability necessary for real-world defensive situations. "The solution isn't more difficult exercises," her report continued. "It's exercises that teach students to maintain effectiveness when difficulty increases unpredictably." Her recommendations included specific training modifications that Granite Peak could implement immediately, along with longer-term curriculum development, suggestions that would require months to fully integrate. Walsh realized he was receiving consultation that would normally cost civilian facilities hundreds of thousands of dollars from the few private contractors who possessed comparable expertise. "Dr. Hayes, what do we owe you for this assessment and curriculum development?" Her slight smile returned as she gathered her materials and prepared to depart for her next facility evaluation. "Consider it professional development between instructors. Where will you conduct your next assessment?" "Mountain View Tactical in Utah, then Desert Edge in Nevada. The research continues until I've evaluated enough facilities to document industry-wide patterns and develop systemic solutions." Walsh understood that Granite Peak had been one stop in a comprehensive research project that would influence civilian tactical training standards across the entire country. Will you return to check on our implementation progress? I conduct follow-up assessments periodically to document long-term effectiveness of recommended changes, probably in 6 months. As Dr. Hayes departed, Walsh implemented the first phase of her recommendations immediately. Enhanced stress training that introduced unpredictable variables. Equipment familiarization with weapons students hadn't used. Environmental exercises that challenged established techniques. Within weeks, student performance began reflecting the improvements Dr. Hayes had predicted. Graduates demonstrated not just technical proficiency, but adaptability under conditions that would have previously degraded their effectiveness. The changes are remarkable, Gonzalez reported after completing her training. I feel prepared for scenarios I never practiced specifically, because I understand principles that apply regardless of specific circumstances. Word of Granite Peaks. Enhanced programs spread through professional networks, attracting students from law enforcement, private security, and military backgrounds seeking training that exceeded standard civilian offerings. 6 months later, Dr. Hayes returned for her follow-up assessment. She found a facility that had integrated her recommendations so successfully that student capabilities exceeded even her optimistic projections. Impressive implementation, she noted, observing advanced training exercises that hadn't existed. During her initial visit, you've adapted the principles to develop innovations beyond my original recommendations. Walsh had used her foundational improvements to create additional enhancements that elevated Granite Peak's reputation among tactical training facilities nationwide. We've had inquiries from other facilities requesting information about our curriculum changes. I've been sharing your assessment methodologies with colleagues who want to conduct similar evaluations. Dr. Hayes nodded her approval. That's exactly the intended outcome. Individual facility improvement that spreads throughout the industry. Her research mission had achieved its purpose. Systematic evaluation that identified training limitations, practical solutions that addressed those limitations, and dissemination of improvements that elevated standards across multiple facilities. How many facilities have you assessed so far? 47 completed, 18 more scheduled. The data is revealing consistent patterns that suggest industry-wide curriculum modifications could significantly improve student preparedness. Walsh realized he was witnessing research that would influence the future of civilian tactical training. Dr. Hayes was documenting and solving problems that had limited training effectiveness for years. Will you publish your findings? The research will be made available through professional channels once the assessment phase is complete. Probably another 18 months of data collection. Her work represented the most comprehensive evaluation of civilian tactical training ever conducted, with practical recommendations that were already improving student preparedness at facilities nationwide. Years later, when tactical training professionals discussed the evolution of civilian programs during the 2020s, they would reference the Hayes protocols, assessment and improvement, methods that had elevated industry standards beyond previous limitations. Dr. Hayes continued her research mission, visiting facilities across the country with the same pattern: systematic evaluation, practical recommendations, curriculum improvements that enhance student preparedness for real-world applications. Her work existed in the space between academic research and operational necessity, improving training systems that protected people who might never know how her contributions had enhanced their preparation for situations they hoped never to encounter. The woman who had been dismissed as unqualified for basic training had systematically revolutionized an entire industry through expertise that transcended normal certification boundaries. Her legacy lived not in official recognition, but in the enhanced capabilities of students whose training had been improved by methods they might never fully understand. Some contributions the training community learned couldn't be measured by traditional metrics. They could only be recognized by the lives protected through better preparation, achieved by those who chose to make excellence their permanent mission rather than their temporary achievement. The mission continued. One facility at a time, one improvement at a time, one better prepared student at a time. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.